All right, what's going on, everybody? We're going to get ready to get started in just a moment here on Titans and Truth. And I got something very, very special in store for you here on this show. So y'all better get ready because y'all are in for a treat. Got a big time guest that's going to come in, and we are going to talk some wide receivers. And I'm definitely ready to have some fun on this one. So y'all get ready. Titans and Truth coming in less than 60 seconds. Good evening, Titan Nation. How is everybody? Good evening, Titan Nation. How's everybody doing? Welcome into another edition of TNT Tonight. I'm your host, Chris, aka Blue Enforcer, and we are live from the True Studios here in the Man Cave. So I'm glad to have everybody here tonight, and we're gonna have a very, very fun episode with you. And first off, before we do this, let's take care of a little bit of bills. Make sure y'all share this show out. You can share this out on YouTube. You hit that share button. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, and hit that bell so you get all the notifications. Also on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter, you have the pages are down below. On Facebook at TNT Enforcers, that's the fan page, and the Titans and Truth official page, as well as on Instagram at Titans_N_Truth, and also on Twitter at TNT Blue Enforcer. Super chats, of course, are also appreciated as well. Definitely do appreciate that also. And also, if you want to get some TNT swag like what I have on right here and now, y'all definitely make sure you hit me up. You can hit me up on any of the Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. You can also hit me up on email at canewell, that's CANEWELL817 at gmail.com. You can hit up Miss Latoya Akinyemi for any of the Titans and Truth shirts, whether it's navy or blue. Also, for any of the hats, like the red hat that you see, also the blue hat that you will see me have on during the show, you can hit out the crib customs at out_the_crib_customs on Instagram. And so I definitely thank y'all for tuning in, and I have a very special guest I'm finna bring in. And without further ado, I am going to bring in the man, the myth, well, not a myth, the man, the legend, and the man I like to call Mr. Bow Tie Swag himself, the one and only Mr. Teron Davenport, TD. Sir, welcome in here, man. As always, it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you on tonight.
Yeah, what's up, man? I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man, I appreciate you too. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule, because I know it's draft season and we get ready to talk probably one of my favorite positions in the draft, and I know it's a position near and dear to your heart as we get ready to talk wide receivers in this draft. And also, of course, everybody, you know you can find TD on Twitter at T_Davenport_NFL. And also make sure y'all check out Talking with TD on every Wednesday. It'll be on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get any of your podcasts. Before he leaves out, we're going to see what nugget he drops on us for the episode coming up. That he's going to be dropping today as well. So again, TD, man, it is a pleasure to have you on the show as always, my brother. But you got to get started with kind of some sad news. Of course, the NFL mourning the loss of a another young another young superstar, young star in this league that really didn't get a chance to get his career off in the NFL. Unfortunately, Dwayne Haskins left us way too soon, passed away due to a fatal car accident. Just it's just a very unfortunate thing that happened with him. TD, I wanted to just quickly get your thoughts of any memories that you had with Dwayne coming into the draft and also coming out of Ohio State.
Yeah, well, I didn't know Haskins personally, but the thing that I always think about is the video of him going into the Ohio State facility and saying how awesome it was and saying he wanted to be a quarterback someday. He wanted to go to college there, actually. And to see him be able to fulfill that and have the same jersey on, same headband, I thought that was really cool. And it's a life lost too soon, full of potential. And he was really starting to work towards fulfilling that potential. So it's a shame.
Absolutely. I definitely couldn't agree more with that. I mean, even though I was a fan, even though I like the Michigan Wolverines and kind of hate seeing Ohio State, take them down or anything, it's just, again, like you said, a loss way too soon for what's happened. So, again, everybody, my thoughts and prayers go out to the Haskins family. We're going to have a very quick, brief moment of silence. Rest in peace to Dwayne Haskins. Thank y'all very much for that. And, definitely very sad story, but definitely got to turn. We're going to definitely try to make this a happy episode at the end of the day. But before we get into wide receivers, there is one currently on the Tennessee Titans roster that, well, we got some business we need to tend to with him, and that would be one Mr. Arthur Juan Downtown Brown. And there's been all these reports about possible trades that just seem to be completely untrue. J-Rob has already come out and said that they're not shopping them. They haven't taken calls. So, TD, in your opinion, with all of this going on, here's the question. When does our boy A.J. Brown get extended? When do you think this could possibly happen?
Well, first of all, there aren't any real reports of him being traded. It's just
Right.
a series of people not being able to understand context to an article. Rich Cimini didn't say that A.J. Brown was going to get traded. He said that the Jets are monitoring the situation.
Mm-hmm.
This was coming fresh off of Tyreek Hill rejecting them and going to the Dolphins. So I think that's something to get straight. There aren't reports that he's going to be traded. So let's cancel that. As far as the contract, we're not sure when it's going to be done. They've said that they're working towards doing that, but I wouldn't expect it to be done anytime soon just because this team is still strapped financially. June 1st, you have the $9.5 million credit that's going to come from releasing Julio Jones. So that is a time when it could happen. There's also some contracts that could be twisted a little bit to be able to open up more space. I would imagine that's going to come some point during the season, in my opinion, but they're not going to let A.J. Brown go. It's been too long since they've had a 1,000-yard receiver. You look at 2013, you had Kendall Wright. Obviously, Delaney Walker had it in 15, but as a receiver is concerned, it's been too long since they've had that.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree. I mean, all those, rumors and all that. I already figured he probably wasn't going anywhere. And of course, with with everything that happened, J-Rob basically shut that completely down. So shut the door right there on that. But I know I've been saying that I think it would be something that happens maybe, right before the season in training camp. And again, it could happen, definitely during the season. But I do agree with you. It's pretty much, in my opinion, a formality that AJ's going to be here for the long haul. And, I just made a off the wall prediction. I just said, I would say 5 years, 115. That's about 23, about 23 a year, give or take. As you would say, the most important part would be the guaranteed money, not necessarily that whole amount, but the guaranteed money is the main number that you would that needs to be, looked at. But I said around 23 mil a year because I know Tyreek's making 30, Devontae's making 28, and everything. And I believe Stephon Diggs just got a deal for 26 and a half. In your opinion, am I off on that? Would that hypothetically seem like a pretty fair deal, about 23 a year for him?
That would seem like a pretty fair deal, but I'm looking at it from what Tory Dandy, his agent, has done with a few other receivers, and they were 3-year deals in the $60 million range. I don't think AJ will be that low. I think more like 3 years, $75 million. AJ is 24. He'll be 25 before the season starts. So I think you look at that. He goes through those 3 years. Now you're talking about 28, 29 years old, getting another crack at the apple. Now you can sign another contract. But I think within that 75 to 80 million, I would have 60 of it guaranteed. So he'll definitely be in a good spot. But you never know. It could get into the 100 million degree. You just have to see how this thing plays out.
Okay, I like that. And like I said, this is why I come to you because, hey, I learned from you on stuff like that. So that's definitely pretty fair facts that you bring in because that's all you spit is facts, and I appreciate it. But now switching gears, since we are in draft season, and this wide receiver class seems to be very, very deep, and it's a position that the Titans definitely have to look at, especially, unfortunately, with the unsuccessfulness of Julio Jones. We bring in Robert Woods off of the trade. AJ, of course, is still at form, but obviously there's still a need of wide receivers. So I have my top 5, and I can get into the pros and cons of each of them. I kind of want to see what you think of these, and maybe if I'm off on some of this, and maybe there's a twist around on the list. But I give my top 5 simply as this. I have at number 1, Chris Olave. And I know, and I've heard you say this, and you can clarify this for me. Now, maybe about a month ago, that would have seemed like a possibility. Now, probably not looking so much like a possibility. Looked like he could go a lot sooner, around the top 15, if I'm not mistaken. After that, I have Jameson Williams at 2. Love the speed. Jahan Dotson at 3. Traylon Burks at 4. And I could not break the tie between Sky Moore and Christian Watson at 5. I like both of these guys, and of course I'm going to get into the graphics with these guys on that. Does my top 5, before we get into those guys specifically, is my top 5 off at all?
Well, I don't see how you don't have Garrett Wilson in there. He's a number 1 or number 2 receiver in this draft, and you talk about catch radius, you talk about smoothness, running the routes, toughness, attacking the football. He's someone you have to have in there. Good releases, too. He's actually drawn Stephon Diggs comparisons. I compare him to Robert Woods, frankly, just because of that toughness and ability to get yards after the catch. So I think Garrett Wilson, he belongs in everyone's top 3, let alone top 5.
Now I will say this. I did that for a reason. I did that for strategic purposes because I feel Garrett Wilson's not going to be there for the Titans at 26 unless they trade up somehow or Garrett Wilson has a drop. And that's really the main specific reason I don't have Garrett Wilson in this top 5 because, in all honesty, I don't think he's going to be there at 26. And unfortunately, I'm starting to lean towards the fact, even though I love Chris Olave and I would like for him to be there, there's a very strong possibility that he's not going to be there either, and got to look at some other, possibilities with that as well. So that was my reasoning for not.
If you're going from that perspective, you take Chris Olave out of there because he's probably going to go top 15. So you have your 5 then: Williams, Dotson, Burks, Moore, and Watson. That would be your 5 then. So you're going from that perspective.
See, y'all, this is why I listen to him. This is why I listen to the expert. This is who I learn from when it comes to things like this, because he helps me and holds me accountable. And that's what this show is all about, absolutely. But, I definitely agree when starting with Chris Olave and basically going to knock that out, saying that it looks like he'll be gone before we could even get to him. Again, 6'1", 189, 13 touchdowns on 65 catches. I love his route running ability, and he's deceptively fast. Showed that at the combine running I believe it was a 4.32 officially. Just definitely knows how to get open, has great hands. Now, on the bad side, blocking could be a little bit of a problem. Didn't really show that he could block extremely well, at least from the film I was looking at. Probably could bulk up a little bit, maybe get about an extra, I would say 10 pounds on him or something like that. But there's really not a lot of weaknesses to this young man's game at all. I definitely would love it if Chris Olave is there at 26. I would say if it's not for a quarterback, go get this guy. But again, the draft capital, I don't think is really there for the Titans to make this move. But another guy that's intriguing, the second guy, Jameson Williams from Alabama, 6'2", 189. This guy, speed. We need it. We've been longing for it for so long. World-class speed and smooth route running with that speed. He's definitely a home run threat, but he does have that injury concern coming back from the torn ACL, which, I've seen some videos of him running on Twitter and everything, but we're not sure if he's going to be ready by training camp or sometime in October. That could be a question. Blocking, of course, could be another issue with that. And in some video, especially one against Florida, where he does tend to struggle against physical DBs, especially in press coverage, and had a couple of cases of the dropsies on that. Also, Jahan Dotson, my third guy. I really like this cat out of Penn State. Extremely productive despite subpar quarterback play. He has some punt return ability. I see I got that spelled wrong, so forgive me, everybody. Punt return ability. He's an excellent route runner, great hands. Has some great speed, not to the level of Jameson Williams, but not too far off with his speed. Again, he does tend to struggle as well against press. He had sometimes against Roger McCreary against Auburn. I know he's a guy, TD, that you've talked about being a good corner. And also, he may have a little bit of strength issue as far as that. Blocking, he has shown a little bit of a willingness to block, but that still could be something that could be worked on. My fourth guy, Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. Big body physical receiver. His game is the most similar to A.J. Brown. Combat catcher, willing to block, could line up anywhere. Now, he didn't test well at the combine. At first, I was thinking, okay, he's got a speed issue, but there's a difference in between that straight line speed coming out of a stance like that at the combine and just game speed, which I did see in his tape. Now, he could refine his routes a little bit, create some separation a little bit better, but this guy has the potential to be a game breaker, and we have one. You couldn't have enough of those. And then, of course, my last two, Sky Moore. I know I really like this guy. I think he plays big. He plays bigger than his size. Good hands, blocks with effort, even though of his size. He could struggle with that, but he does give an effort on that. Has a knack for the ball, has a little bit of hops to him, and has some very good speed. But in the NFL, people will probably try to relegate him to the slot. But we've seen a certain guy that, that was known to be under 6 foot and became one of the better receivers in the league. That guy by the name of Steve Smith. Steve Smith Sr., by the way, who was quite good as a number one receiver despite being under 6 foot. And last but not least, Christian Watson of North Dakota State. I love his size. He's got that game speed. He's a vertical threat. He's a decent blocker as well, but does have to refine his route running and just has to make sure he stays engaged if he's not that top target. But a lot of people probably think he played against lesser competition, but at the Senior Bowl, as sure TD will talk about, he showed out and showed pretty well against some D1, against other D1 athletes who definitely stepped up. So, TD, out of my evaluation of those five, what did you think of those five, or do you see maybe a switch as far as my top five, as far as somebody ahead of another?
I mean, all five of those guys are good. I don't really disagree with how they're listed. I think, blocking is something that if you get it with a receiver, it's a plus. But I'm not really one to ding a receiver for blocking. Like if you draft Jamison Williams at 26, you're not drafting him to block. You're drafting him to make plays down the field. You're drafting
Absolutely.
him to catch the football and get yards after the catch like he does. And frankly, even if with a guy like Dotson or I mean, with all of these guys, you could block just by running the corner off. So you don't have to, as a receiver, you're not asked to put hands on a DB and dunk them in the Gatorade bucket on the sideline. You don't have to do that. So
Right.
I don't really stress blocking as much. I don't really see it as something that now if somebody's out there and they just completely like if the ball's not coming to them and they don't release off the ball hard and at least try to sell that they're running a route and they have no interest in blocking, that's different. But
Right.
I think just it's not a big thing for me. All these guys are good. Sky Moore, he can definitely play outside. You said as you watched the Pittsburgh and Michigan game, I'm sure you saw him make plays. You saw the slant that he ran where it made the corner fall, and then for a touchdown against Pittsburgh.
Yep.
He did big things against Michigan too, so he could play on the outside. A lot of people get caught up in this. He's not so-and-so isn't 6 feet, so he can't win on the outside. Brandon Cooks has shown us that you can, and other receivers, Cam Batson, even to a degree with the Titans, showed that you could win on the outside. He had plenty of outstanding plays there. So, I mean, the list is good. Christian Watson, and the thing I would add is the versatility that he brings. He lined up in the backfield. He played slot. He played X. He played Z. He gives you all that, and he can help you in the return game.
Absolutely. And I looked at your film on Twitter, as far as on your film on Twitter, especially with Skyboard against Northern Illinois in particular, and how he was able to gain separation and just kind of set that corner, set the DBs up to fail as far as, especially toward the end zone. The one receiver was running the slant. He ran that post out and made an excellent catch. And then the other where he just basically reached out and just snagged it, had a real knack for the football as well. But besides that, some other dark horses that I'm looking at that could be potential picks for the Titans, maybe not necessarily in the first round, but a couple of guys that I think that the Titans definitely have their eye on as far as dark horses that really could be looked at, and then we'll look at some sleepers. I got Calvin Austin from Memphis. I've watched this cat for the last couple of years. I mean, speed is his game. I mean, you get the ball in his hands, a lot of things can happen. He's also very good in punt return as well. And he's a guy, even though he's under that 5'9" or short, I believe he might have been measured at 5'7", but he's a playmaker. Alec Pierce. I watched his tape against Notre Dame, and I came away impressed. I looked at him with Desmond Ridder in mind when I was looking at my film last week, and he's faster than I thought. I did not think he was that fast. Maybe not game-breaking speed, but he can fly, and he runs his routes very, very well with that. Like, he's where you're supposed to be. John Mechie is another from Alabama, and at first I didn't even think about his name, which I should have, and there is a receiver or two whose names I didn't think of, but Mechie, a lot of people say he got overshadowed by Jameson Williams. He got hurt, of course, in the SEC championship game, but very productive. George Pickens was a name I really forgot about, and I'm glad that it came back into my head. Even though he didn't play a lot in 2021, he had some good moves in 2020. Very productive. Definitely a very good receiver. Could be a little bit more polished in his game. Definitely has some drop issues, but I like a little bit of what I've seen from George Pickens, especially in the game against Cincinnati in 2020. A guy that I'm kind of scared of, and TD, you might be able to correct me on this pick and convince me. Maybe I'm talking out the side of my neck on this one. Drake London kind of scares me as a guy that possibly could be bust potential. I mean, he was productive at USC, 88 catches, 7 TDs, definitely a good possession receiver, a physical big body receiver, but he lacks that speed that I think has been longing, and I think it's mainly a lot of Titan fans, probably like myself, that wants that speed that has been longing. But who are some of your potential dark horses that you see that could be of note for somebody that the Titans need to pay attention to?
Well, Drake London, first of all, is probably going to be the first receiver drafted. So I'm not exactly sure how he's a dark horse. Again, if you're going to leave Garrett Wilson out, you might as well leave Drake London out also. Right. I don't see a lot of bust potential with him. You're not drafting him to get a speed guy. You're drafting him to get a player that will make plays down the field for you as a jump ball catcher, as a back shoulder catcher, as a catch radius guy. But again, he almost certainly will be gone. As far as dark horses are concerned, Isaiah Weston out of Northern Iowa is a guy that you have to look at. I talked to him. He said Mike Vrabel came up to him and complimented him about his size, asked him who he was, and complimented his size. If you go back and watch the North Dakota State game, he and Christian Watson together, I mean, with better quarterback play, they probably would have had 500 yards receiving between the two of them. They still had a good 400 or so. So they had an outstanding game, but he's 6'4", 218, talking 4.41, 40-inch vertical, lots of speed there. And it's not just him running by DBs, it's catching passes and running away from them. So he's a sleeper. Eric Ezukama, who we had on talking with TD this week from Texas Tech. You like Traylon Burks, you're going to love Eric Ezukama because he brings a lot of the same thing. He lives across the middle of the field. He catches the slants. DBs bounce off of him. You see him taking jet sweeps. You see him catching the ball out of the backfield, literally out of the backfield. So he is that move-around piece that you could use. No one's talking about him, but he's an outstanding player. So those are a couple of sleepers right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly the name you just mentioned, and I knew you were going to mention that young man's name, which is why I had him as one of the sleepers. I was going to say some guys that maybe aren't getting talked about at all or as much as they should, who needs to be talked about. And Eric Ezukama is one of those guys. I knew you were going to mention his name because I know I've heard you mention his name before. I went back, looked at some film. Big body guy. I mean, just knows how to high point the ball. And that was something that I was blown away by. I mean, knows how to high point the ball, and I think he's fat. He's a pretty fast receiver and can be a threat with the ball in his hands. A couple of other guys that I think are not being talked about at all. Tyquan Thornton, I mean, the guy, blazing speed, of course, showing at the combine and on tape, he shows it as well. I mean, being able to just run away from anybody else. Romeo Dupes from Nevada, I think is another guy that's a sleeper. I mean, excellent speed. Was out there with Carson Strong, extremely successful. I liked Velus Jones from Tennessee, definitely a productive receiver. He's an older receiver, but he's a guy that could give some versatility, maybe could help in the return game as well. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, same as Calvin Austin as far as size, but gives you so much more than what you think as far as size is concerned, and he's a burner too in this league. So can't necessarily just relegate him to the slot, but he would be dangerous in that position. And just a sneaky name that nobody probably is known about is Mekhi Polk from Mississippi State. I watched this kid against my alma mater, the University of Memphis, in that game where Calvin Austin was very successful and had that very crazy punt return. Mekhi Polk was messing up the Memphis Tiger defense. He was being a problem for that Memphis Tiger defense, and I think he could be a guy, maybe late in the draft, maybe in the 6th or 7th round, or he may even go, maybe he could be a diamond in the rough for somebody that is undrafted, as far as I'm concerned, with being somebody that could possibly make the team and do something on that particular team. So, TD, you mentioned a couple of names. Were there any other names that just nobody has even really thought of that's like, you know what, you should really pay attention to this guy? And I think there's one somewhere out of Alabama that I think you mentioned.
Yeah,
Northern Alabama. I believe he's HBCU.
Oh, you're talking about Alabama A&M.
Alabama A&M. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I mean, D. Anderson is a player that was at LSU and Oklahoma State. He had some issues at LSU, but you watch Akil Glass, who they say is the next HBCU quarterback to be selected in the draft. 12 of his touchdowns went to D. Anderson, so that's definitely somebody.
Yeah, and so this is where I go to you on your area of expertise, because I love your knowledge of that position and everything that you bring to the table on that. So I just think that is great. I'm excited about this draft. It's extremely deep. Now, I would say if the Titans don't pick in the first, if the Titans don't pick a receiver in the first round out of, and I know there's many, but what guy that you would think, if it's not first round, that just could be like, you know what, this guy is the perfect fit for the Titans. This is a guy that the Titans have to draft if they have the opportunity. Who could possibly be that one guy? I know there's probably many, but one guy that you just think comes to your mind is like, this is the perfect Titan player.
I think as far as receivers, it's Chris Olave, but he'll probably be gone, but he fits what they want. He doesn't have deceptive speed. He just is fast, period. And he's able to not only use his speed, but also just changing pace within the routes and those type of things. He's a smooth route runner. You think he's very similar to Will Fuller, to be honest with you, except for his hands are better. They're more consistent coming out of college. So that gives you a feel, and they need a vertical threat. He could do that, and he could play the slot as well.
Absolutely on that. Absolutely on that. Well, and I know you got to kind of run with it. Do you have time for maybe one question from a fan?
We can do that.
All right. Well, I got a question from Tyler Westra on Facebook. He says, in your opinion, what would be more important given in the first round? Would it be wide receiver help, or would it be offensive line help?
Well, it's tough because there's no telling who's available, right? So, okay, is the number 6 receiver going to benefit you more than the number 1 guard? In that scenario, no, right? So will Jahan Dotson be better for you than Kenyon Green? Probably not. You have to look at it like that. So it's really, you really just can't look at a position and say, hey, they need to go this position or that position. It really depends on what's available at the time. So that would be a better question to give a group of guys and say, okay, out of these 5 guys, who's the best?
Absolutely. And I would probably say, me personally, you can't really, in this type of draft, you really can't draft for need. Because if you draft for need, in my opinion, that's where you can kind of get yourself in trouble. I mean, in my opinion, this should be a offensive heavy draft. In my opinion, the only thing I would hate is that the Titans pick a defensive player, especially a linebacker, although no disrespect to Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, who both are stud inside linebackers, but I think that's one position we're definitely set on. I've seen some mock drafts with that, but I mean, you're right. There's probably a group of guys there, like you said, a Kenyon Green or a Zion Johnson, Traylon Burks, those guys. If some of those guys are there, I mean, if they stick to the board right, I think they're going to pick a good player. But TD, I know you got to run because I know you got Talking with TD. Want to give us a nugget? What's coming up on Talking with TD?
Well, this week we had Eric Ezukama and Speedy Naylor out of Michigan State. We had those guys on, so check it out.
Oh yeah, I definitely like Mr. Naylor out of Michigan State. That was another guy. I hate I didn't get to mention him. I remember watching that game against Michigan. He was very, very good. Eric Azukama, I'm looking forward to listening to that because again, started watching some film on him. I'm extremely impressed, and I'm glad you gave me his name. I believe on Twitter, so I went and looked at him. But again, TD, see you on Twitter. Y'all can find TD on Twitter at @TDavenport_NFL. Definitely go check out Talking with TD on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you get your podcast. And TD, as always, again, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate talking shop with you. You know you're welcome on this show anytime you want.
Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
All right, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming on in. And that is Titans, ESPN Titans reporter Teron Davenport coming in with us. I know he has to run because he's a very, very busy man and everything, but I definitely appreciate him coming on with us today. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about, before we go any further and start getting ready to wrap this show up, I want to talk to you guys about Continental Sources Tax Consultants. Tax time is drawing near. It's drawing to a close. Monday is the deadline. April 18th. Monday is the deadline to get your taxes done. If you need help getting your taxes done, you can get with my friend, Miss Allison Conley, who is very good. She works on my taxes. She helps me out with everything and has been helping me out for the last couple of years on my taxes, getting you the best refund that you could possibly get. Also, her associate Carmen also is professional as well in helping with that, whether it's your personal taxes or with business or anything like that. They can help you anywhere. It doesn't have to be just Memphis. They can work with you mobile. They can prepare your taxes even if you're not in the city of Memphis. So if you want to give them a call and get help on your taxes now, you only got 5 days remaining. You can call Miss Allison at 901-654-8435, or you could call also 901-949-2871 as well, and get your help on your taxes. So definitely look to them with your if you need help with your taxes. Again, she's doing my taxes, and she's helped me so much when it comes to that. And also, I want to talk to you guys about another new sponsor on Titans and Truth. A new sponsor, First Class Real Estate Advisors, and my friend Cody Bill Hoyland. He's a friend of mine. He's also a fellow Titans fan. Cody is huge on integrity, and that is what he has built his real estate business on. So many other agents only care about making a sale, not Cody. Cody will offer you many options and discuss pros and cons for every option. Cody understands whether you're buying or selling a $10,000 trailer or a $20 million mansion. Cody understands a real estate investment is likely the biggest investment of your life. Whether you live in Tennessee or anywhere between the Carolinas or California, you can give him a call. His number's on the screen. Either his personal number, 731-798-8505, or at his office at 731-207-8060. Or you can also contact him at Cody M at firstclassre.com. That's Cody M at first, that's the number one SST, firstclassre.com for any of your real estate needs. Cody Bill Hoyland of First Class Real Estate Investors Advisors, who is a new sponsor to Titans and Truth. Definitely tell him if you go to him about your real estate needs. Right now this is it's a seller's market, so you definitely want to get on that. Or if you're looking for a home, so definitely call my friend Cody. Tell him Chris of Titans and Truth sent you in regards to that. So Titans and Truth, again, make sure y'all smash that like button. Definitely want to get a bunch of likes here on this show. Get up to 50 likes tonight. And also on. Also subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell also to get the notifications when I go live. Definitely make sure you definitely do that, because if you're supporting that, you're supporting me. And of course, super chats are also appreciated. A couple other things I wanted to get to before we do get out of here is that offensive lineman Trevor Penning visited the Titans, is visiting the Titans, and he's, of course, one of the top offensive linemen in this draft. And he could be a guy that, the Titans, I think, would love to have. He is extremely, extremely physical and nasty, and I just like the way this guy plays football. He goes to the whistle and beyond it. And, I know sometimes that could cause a penalty or things like that, but you want a guy that not only plays to the whistle, but through the whistle as well. So that was a great, that was something of late that, that he's a guy that's being visited by the Tennessee Titans. Also, some bad news. The Falcons decided to sign Anthony Firkser, the former tight end. So obviously the Atlanta Falcons are trying to become the NFC version of the Tennessee Titans, basically. So that is some very interesting news right there, with him being signed by the Atlanta Falcons. Also, in the stadium, with the stadium coming along, there was some new information that has come out from Nate Rao of Axos Nashville. Of course, we already know we have about $1.2 billion heading toward the stadium. That's a proposed $500 million coming from the state and $700 million coming from Titans ownership. And really, to get the stadium done, it's probably going to cost about $2 billion or more. But according to Nate Rao of Axos Nashville, there's a proposal that is being put out that would allow Nashville to increase their hotel-motel tax from 6% to 7 or even 8%, and that is expected to be considered by state lawmakers very, very soon. Now, at 6%, the tax generates $60 million in revenue, $60 million in revenue the year before the pandemic, and a 1% increase would boost that number by about $10 million. So that's at least $70 million a year that could be coming in if that tax goes up to 7%. To 7%. That also means part of the money that would be needed excuse me for that. That just means part of the money that will be needed for a new stadium comes from tourists coming from out of the area, from out of state. Somebody probably like myself that travels from Memphis. Of course, I stay at a friend's house, so that may not concern me particularly. But of course, their main thought would be, of course, to host bigger events, especially those in the wintertime when it's cold, when it's snowy, and we could still get out and go to those particular games. And of course, an NFL spokesman, Brian McCarthy, stated that a new indoor stadium would greatly help Nashville's chances of hosting the Super Bowl down the road. So that is some big news, as far as that's something that the state and the city are talking about, and that's something that doesn't have to come out of the pockets fully from taxpayers. And last but not least, some other news, some updates on Caleb Farley as well. It looks like because he, of course, tore his ACL in the game against Buffalo, and J-Rob has already stated he's expecting more out of Caleb Farley in this next season. And right now, at the owners' meetings, that Farley looks like he is rehabbing hard, and that he looks good and stronger. And Vrabel has stated that he likes his consistency. He looks good. He certainly looks stronger when I see him in the training room. So that is something of some very good news when it comes to that. And he's also added some mass in his upper body. And J-Rob and Vrabel have been very pleased with Caleb Farley's progress coming along following that ACL injury. And they're hoping that Farley starts alongside Christian Fulton next season. So that is some very good news coming out from Caleb Farley with that. But before I get out of here tonight, here on Titans and Truth, and again, I thank everybody for tuning in. I have my blue bombshell, and that is I give big ups to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies, Southwest Division champions, and have locked up the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. They will host the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 1 of the first round of the Western Conference playoffs starting this Saturday at 2:30 on ESPN. And I'm trying to work on being in attendance for that game, but I will be somewhere watching that game if all else fails. Definitely shout out to John Morant, Taylor Jenkins, to Triple J, Desmond Bain, and the entire team. This team has been playing some great ball. They matched their franchise record in wins in a year with 56. And this team is going to be a problem in the playoffs. And the T-Wolves will have their work cut out for them. They won their play-in game against the LA Clippers last night. And so I know we got D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns coming in, but I think the Grizzlies could do very well against this team. And so I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Grizzlies do in the playoffs. They have some experience in the playoffs from last year. And also they were a part of the play-in tournament 2 years ago. For Minnesota, they have not been in this position as far as being in the playoffs in the last couple of years. So this is going to be new territory for them. So we'll definitely have to see how they do. Again, everybody, I thank everybody for all of your support. Thank y'all for everything that y'all have done for me. But we are almost at 1,200 subscribers. Please help me reach that 1,200 so that I can continue putting out great content for you. So that way you get to enjoy more of Titans and Truth as time goes on. But everybody, that's going to just about do it for me. I thank everybody for tuning in to Titans and Truth. I'm your man, Chris, a.k.a. Blue Enforcer. And y'all have a very good rest of your evening. And definitely make sure y'all share the show out. Subscribe to the show if you haven't. Hit that like button. And always remember to tighten up, because that's all we know how to do. Good night, y'all.